What's up guys, JNO here and welcome today to another episode of the NeXt. That's right, it's back, but before we get into the episode, which is Didier Drogba based, we are going to just quickly remind you guys that on the FM Scout channel, we are kicking off the FM Scout Cup in support of Prostate Cancer UK, so make sure to stay tuned and keep an eye out for those matches coming up on the channel. Great cause we're doing this cup for with a lot of great content creators, so make sure to stay tuned. But let's get on with the next episode of the NeXt as we look for the next Didier Drogba. Now on the screen now you should be able to see Didier Drogba's stats in Championship Manager 2001-2002. Now the first thing I'd like to point out is the age is wrong. He was not born in 1970, but he was in fact born in 1978. So I'm not 100% sure what the person did with this screenshot. Maybe they were trying to get Didier Drogba at his optimal stats in Championship Manager 2001-2002. But I've had a look over the stats and I'm quite happy with how they look as far as the type of player Didier Drogba was. So I will be using these stats. And I will be using 6 main stats, which is aggression, stamina and strength, finishing and heading, as well as off the ball. So let's go into a bunch of my long-term saves and we're going to have a look at the top 5 players I have found in those saves who I believe, if you buy them and train them up right, could be the next Didier Drogba. Now first up on the list is Aleksander Mitrovic. Now everyone knows about him, he's been a player with great potential for a while now, and in this save he has gone to Espanyol, but the reason he is number 5 is mainly because I have a bunch of saves and in the other saves his stats did not look this good. His stamina is at 14, which is a little bit low, but his strength is at 17, so he's a strong lad. Aggression at 18, we all know how aggressive Aleksander Mitrovic can be. Off the ball is 14, again that's a bit disappointing, as well as the finishing at 14, and the heading is at 15. So not as good as Didier Drogba, but the goal scoring record was there. As you can see, overall for the club, 14 goals in 31 appearances is not too bad. The season before that, 19 goals in 30 appearances. So the goal scoring record is okay. It's not as good as we'd like it to be, of course, but he is playing for Espanyol, who aren't the best team in Spain, which may affect his goal scoring record. If we have a look at the scout report, we can see he'd be considered a good signing for most Premier Division sides. He's really good in the air, but he isn't professional, which is probably why sometimes you get a good Aleksander Mitrovic and sometimes you don't. If we have a look at his stats for this last season that he's played in, you can see 23 goals overall. He had 173 shots. On target he had 95, which is a 55% shot on target ratio, which isn't too bad. Would like to see it a little bit higher, but per game he has shots on target of 2.85 a game. Coming in at number 4 is Jimenez, and I probably said that wrong and I apologise if I did. But if we have a look at his stats, we can see stamina is at 15, the strength is a bit low for my liking at 13, aggression again is only at 10, but then we get onto the good stats with off the ball at 16, finishing of 17 and heading of 15. We can see that he moved from Atletico Madrid to Benfica, and then from Benfica to Zenit St. Petersburg, all transfers between 5 to 10 million, none going over 8.5 million in fact. And we can see it is in Russia that he's had his best spell. The recent season he had 25 appearances with 14 goals. The season before, 20 appearances with 13 goals. And an average rating of over 7 in both of those 2 seasons. So he's starting to find himself in Russia. If we have a look at the scout report, we can see he's a highly professional player. So if you get your hands on him in game, you could potentially turn him into even better than he is when he's controlled by an AI manager. A good signing for most Premier Division clubs, and he displays resolute characteristics, is an intelligent player and anticipates situations well. So he's someone that you could bring into your team yourself and probably turn into a lot better than the stats he is currently showing. If we have a look at his game stats, we can see he's had 68 shots that are on record. Again, I don't have the Russian league loaded up, but on target he had 37 shots on target out of 68, which is a 54% on target ratio, and he scored 11 goals with shots on target per game of 2.37. Okay, coming in at number 3 is Luis Henrique. Now the downside to this player is he's still not playing in what I would consider one of the best leagues in Europe. Portuguese league is very good, don't get me wrong, but it's not a top league. So would these stats still occur if he got into, say, the Premiership, the Spanish league, so on and so forth? But if we have a look at his stats, we can see the strength is at 16, stamina at 15, aggression is pretty low at 10, but off the ball is 15, finishing is 15, and his heading is 15. So apart from the aggression, you're looking at 15 and up for all the key stats that I'm looking at to be the next Didier Drogba. As we can see, he spent nearly all of his career at FC Porto, although he did go on loan to Olympiacos, and in those seasons he has been an average goal scorer until this season, where in 28 appearances he got 25 goals and a 7.9 average rating. If we have a look at the scout report, you can see the player's recent performances have been nothing short of sensational, so he's on a really good run of form at the moment. He's an athletic player with a determined attitude, but unfortunately again he's lacking that professionalism, which would probably help him become a great player every season. If we have a look at the stats, we can see that because of the way I've got this game set up, the stats report isn't as comprehensive as we'd like, and it was with Mitrovic. But out of the games we have got records of, he had 58 shots with 29 on target, which is a 50% shot on target ratio, and he had 1.89 shots on goal per game. Coming in at the number 2 spot is the next favourite, Rui Pedro. He always seems to pop up when I'm looking for a striker, which shows how rounded a striker he actually is, to have the stats to potentially be so many of these great legends that I'm looking for. If we have a look at the stats concerned to Didier Drogba, we can see strength is at 15, stamina is at 14, aggression is at 11, again the aggression is pretty low, off the ball is 15, with finishing of 15 and heading of 15. Again, as usual, he's moved to West Ham. He moved for 13.75 million. The season before he moved, he had 22 appearances and 20 goals, which is a great ratio. But then he's had to try and adapt to the Premier League, and as you can see, 25 appearances, 4 goals, and then 37 appearances, 13 goals. We would be looking for a better conversion rate than that as we're looking for the next Didier Drogba. On his scout report, we can see that he's a good signing for most Premier Division clubs, like most of these guys are, and he possesses great pace, but unfortunately he isn't professional, which again could mean that you run the risk of not being able to turn him into such a great player. If we have a look at the stats, which are going to be a lot more abundant than previous players who I've not had the leagues loaded up for, we can see he's had 156 shots, 66 on target, which is only a 42% on target ratio, but he's scored 20 goals and he has 1.76 shots on target per game. And finally we look at the number 1 spot, and I know it's not very original and I know it's not a player you can pick up for cheap, but he is overall the most like Didier Drogba on the game I have found going about 5 seasons in, and it is Romelu Lukaku. Now, I mean, if we have a look at the stats, the stamina is pretty low at 12, but you could work on that. Strength is at 20, aggression, again, I prefer it to be higher, but then we get to the good stats, 15 off the ball, finishing 16, and heading of 17. If we have a look at his history, we can see he made a £33.5 million move to Tottenham Hotspurs. In the first season with Everton though, he managed to get 25 goals out of 37 appearances. That has been his best season so far in game, but this season he did manage 18 goals out of 35 appearances with a 7.07 rating. If we have a look at the scout report, we can see he's a professional individual, so you could probably get his stats up even more of Romelu Lukaku in game. A plus side as well is he counts towards a minimum of 8 players trained in England, because he was brought into England early on in his career by Chealse. He'd be a leading player for most Premier Division sides. He's really good in the air, which is something Drogba was good at. And on the plus side as well, the player can generate an extra 1 million per year in marketing revenue for your club. That's always a plus. And if we have a look at the stats, we can see 132 shots on goal with 76 on target, a 58% on target ratio, with 30 goals overall for the club in the season, with a 1.9 shot on target ratio. So there you guys have it. My pick for the next Didier Drogba, if you're looking for a player who you can pick up quite young, is Romelu Lukaku. Now again, I understand that he's not the cheapest player you can get, but if this is the type of player you want leading your line for your club, you may just have to spend the big bucks if you're trying to get the next Didier Drogba. Not many players really stood up stats wise in comparison to the legend that was Didier Drogba. Romelu Lukaku was easily the most like him, and Chelsea let him go, which is I think we were all surprised about when it actually happened. But Romelu Lukaku in game moves on to become a great striker, so definitely pick him up if you're one of the big teams. He can lead your line for years and years and years. Anyway guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I've been JNO. It's been awesome being on the FM Scout channel as always. Make sure to stay tuned for the FM Scout Cup, which is for the great cause that I've already mentioned, Prostate Cancer UK, and I will catch you guys next time.